Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where Kyle Curtin takes you on an extraordinary journey alongside renowned multifamily real estate sponsors and syndication experts from every corner of the United States. We teach you how to harness the power of passive real estate investing and witness the transformation of your wealth building strategy. Let's create wealth together.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kyle from Creating Wealth. I wanted to welcome you to another super short, digestible, bite-sized episode here on this wonderful Wednesday. So today, we're going to be talking about how to find private passive real estate investments. Now, you've probably seen in the past that it's a pretty interesting vehicle. It's definitely not like, your traditional index fund, mutual fund. It's not publicly traded. So how exactly do you find these private investments where do you have to be a part of a country club and know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy, to get access to something like this? Well, partially. And there's a lot of different ways to kind of skin the cat when it comes to this. And I first want to explain to you why it can be tough to find these type of investments. So the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, essentially allows syndicators, which are the folks who are, carrying out the business plan and the acquisition, stabilization, all that fun stuff on these large assets. And there's certain ways to do this because there's essentially a couple different formats that allow syndicators to be able to do these kind of projects, to raise capital, to, do all these things, execute the business plan, the whole 9 yards. And they're called exemptions. So essentially, these exemptions, there's a few of them. There's two of them that are extremely popular. And if you guys have, kind of watched some interviews on my channel or listened to the podcast in the relatively recent past, you might be familiar with these exemptions. So essentially, there's a few of them. But yeah, so essentially, these basically allow people to raise capital, do all these different things without having to get, a bunch of stockbroker licenses, all this crazy stuff, right? Like Series 65 and like all these different things. And basically, the SEC does allow you to do this, but you need to follow a lot of their rules, because this is also a space that's extremely regulated, and it should be for really good reason. So essentially, the two exemptions are the 506B and the 506C. And I'm going to give you guys a quick lowdown of each one. I definitely recommend going to the SEC's website, especially to check the most updated versions of these rules. And, things change all the time and that type of thing. So just to really be sure that you have the most updated. But as of September 26th of 2023, 506B exemption essentially allows syndicators to raise capital from up to 35 unaccredited investors, raise an unlimited amount of capital from an unlimited amount of accredited investors. But the thing is you can't publicly advertise these types of offerings. And it's incredibly interesting because the 506C, on the other hand, is essentially, in a sense, the opposite. So you can post these things wherever your heart desires. Again, check the SEC's website before you do anything and that type of thing. You can post these anywhere, but you can only accept accredited investors into these types of deals. So when it comes to an accredited investor, and same thing again, because, rules change all the time and that type of thing, you have to have $1 million in net worth, excluding the equity in your primary residence. And I believe you to make $200,000 a year in the past 2 years, I believe, as an individual, and then making $300,000 or more as a couple or with a spouse in the past 2 years as well. And again, double check my metrics on there, guys, just to make sure you get the most updated info. But yeah, so essentially, like, it's interesting, right? Because the way that I see things is 506B investments are typically for, smaller deals where a lot of unaccredited capital is definitely needed, to get the deal across the finish line, as well as executing the business plan. And it's not as easy to just like, oh, all right, like we'll just find a bunch of accredited investors that we'll just go to directly, and like we'll just advertise to them. 506C, on the other hand, is the opposite. You might have seen like Facebook ads, Instagram ads, other forms of widespread advertisement for particular deals showing like forecasted equity multiple, your IRR, your, cash on cash, ARR, that type of thing, on like, those websites and stuff like that. These hopefully should be 506C, because if they're 506B, that's a huge no-no and you don't want to be a part of that. But essentially, so my point being here, guys, that's kind of a bit drawn out, is it's tough to find some of these type of deals, because the deals that most folks would, generally speaking, that most folks would be able to qualify for is the 506B. Typically, they'll be like $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 minimum investments. And like, you have to know the guys or gals and have that pre-existing relationship with them, like make sure it's fitting for each other's goals, that type of thing. It had like the stars have to align for you to essentially be able to get access to these type of deals, because they can't be publicly advertised. Now, there's a couple different ways to find syndicators, and there's a quote from Brian Burke. He's an absolutely kick-ass syndicator. He's got a book back here that's absolutely phenomenal. It's called The Hands-Off Investor. It's one of the Biggerpockets books there on syndications. And one of the most popular quotes that he pulls from that book, or that he mentions in that book, is to not look for a particular investment, but instead look for a great operator. Because typically great operators are going to have, a nice track record of doing deals. They're going to be well known in the market. And when you're well known and, people know that you have the ability to close, stabilize, and exit, and, everybody gets their money, hopefully surpassing forecasted returns, that type of deal, you're going to become well known, to brokers and other folks around that are going to hopefully give you a priority when it comes to deals that they come across in their travels. So essentially, like, looking for great operators typically brings great deals along with it. You know what I mean? So that's something that I want to stress a ton. And there's multiple ways to meet these folks, just through networking, going to your town or city RIA meetings, networking events, stuff like that. You can also go to conferences. There's conferences pretty much all around the country. There's probably like one every month in some corner of the country. You know what I mean? I'm going to one in New York, and I'm not sure when this episode's going to come out, but sometime in November of 2023, beginning of November. And essentially, yeah, I mean, like, it's multifamily only. There's going to be a ton of syndicators there, probably some other, fellow passive investors, a lot of different people at an event. There's a lot of those types of events all the time. Leaf has got one down in Florida that just passed. I'm not sure if it's there all the time, but those are things that you can go to as well, because I can talk up and down about, how much of an impact the in-person connection has, for potentially working with someone in really any capacity and any sort of venture. But that type of relationship can happen, at the bar, like after one night of the event. You know what I mean? And like, you can just get a really good feel for, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you never know, but going to multifamily conferences is another big one. And then the third one, I'm going to give a shameless plug here, guys. Definitely reach out to me because I have a lot of syndicators on the podcast, as you guys have probably seen over the past few months or so. And essentially, I'm always connecting with, other syndicators in multiple different Facebook groups and that type of thing. Just really trying to better my knowledge of this whole entire sector. And become someone that's much better at it as time goes on, as quickly as I can. And also I do work alongside a few absolutely awesome syndicators that are looking in, Central and Western Mass dominantly. We have a lot of relationships out in these particular necks of the woods, property management, asset management, the whole gamut, the whole 9 yards. And I know of a couple others as well that are very, very good at what they do. So, yeah, I mean, if anybody ever, wanted to have a conversation about that type of thing, wanted to go over, some of the different operators, kind of pick my brain about, some different folks, different areas that they're investing in, going over goals and everything is conversations that I have often. Seeing if, passively investing, it could be potentially a vehicle for you. Yeah. Feel free to shoot out a DM or an email or something to me, guys. Email would probably be good, actually. So my email is kyle@creatingwealth.com. That's KYLE at KCREatingwealth.com. I had to think about that for a second. But yeah, feel free to reach out. More than happy to talk about, goals, deals, anything that you want to talk about, feel free. And yeah, I'm going to cap this one off, guys. If you wouldn't mind, please leave a rating and a review on this podcast, share it with your friends, trying to spread, as much syndication knowledge as I can to folks that it can really benefit. And yeah, I hope everything goes well this Wednesday. You're 2 days away from Friday, 3 days away from Saturday. That's pretty badass. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.
That's a wrap for today's episode. We want to thank you for being a valued listener of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Make sure to visit www.creatingwealth.com to connect with us. Dive into our ever-expanding library of informative blogs. Get access to our private investor portal and explore a wide range of additional valuable resources. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to create wealth together.